Welcome to the third Startup Grind, and it's a pleasure to have Victoria Brilz all the way from Cochrane, so welcome to Calgary.
Great to be here.
Thanks. And Victoria, for those who don't know, is one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Alberta, I'd say.
Here we go, the stories begin.
So, like me, she's a Waterloo grad and started a company called Dynastream, which was sold for $36 million to Garmin. And now she's on to her second company, Four Eyes Technology, which we'll talk plenty about soon. So thanks so much. And I guess I wanted to get a poll from the audience.
Twitter.
Oh yeah. So we always have this competition at Startup Grind where top two people that tweet the most about this event. Victoria's graciously offered to mentor these two people for half an hour. So start tweeting, and you just need to mention the hashtag SGYYC tweet. So that's all. So I'd like to kind of get a feel for the audience. How many here are entrepreneurs that you have? You're starting something right now, just to. Okay, great. So it's, how many people are aspiring entrepreneurs?
Aspiring also.
Okay. And how many here are just to have a good time and hear good sounds? Okay, great. So maybe tell us a bit about, most people here, I think, are first-time entrepreneurs. So tell us a bit about before Dynastream, before Four Eyes, before the big successes. Did you have, were you entrepreneurial, or did it just kind of come on you? What?
It's kind of funny because now you can actually study to be an entrepreneur, but
Yeah.
back when we were at school and stuff, entrepreneurship wasn't even something that we thought of. And I always kind of thought, wouldn't it be fun to have our own company? But I never thought of that would be an entrepreneur. It was just something that maybe we would eventually do. So I'll preface it right from the beginning. Kip and I have been partners in the business that we do since forever. We met in university, and we actually got married in second year engineering. And so we've been married for 34 years now, so there you go, you can do some math. But, so when we went in the co-op, we were on the co-op program.
Yeah.
And we worked up at Mytel up in Ottawa, and we were building these, we started building these little Apple IIes. Do you remember when the Apple IIes came out? I don't know if anyone here knows what an Apple IIe is. Thank you. But it was before the IBM PC. It was a precursor for the laptops, basically, or the personal computers. Mm-hmm. And we started making these little personal computers, and we would go down to Queen Street on the weekend, and we'd buy our motherboards and buy our Amber screens and buy our little floppy disk drives, and we'd come back, and the neat thing working at Mytel is they would auction off all the little gear, so we had oscilloscopes and all the gear we needed. So we started building these little computers, and I mean, had we invested in Microsoft at the time, we would have been, it would have been just nuts, but we were busy building our own thing at the time. So we started building our own computers, and our friends all wanted one then too. So next 2 weeks later, we'd go down and we'd have like $12,000 rolled up in our pocket to go down and buy chips. And back then, this was a long time ago, that was a lot of money. Yeah. And we started doing this every other week. We were going down, and we were coming back with a bigger bundle of money in our pocket to build these boards. And we'd come back up, and we said, I think we should start a business doing this. So we ended up starting, that was our first business. We always thought it would be a fun thing to do. So we said, let's try it out and try it on for size, see if we're cut out to be entrepreneurs. And so that was our first business, and we had a lot of fun stories with that. And what ended up happening was the teachers in the schools wanted to bring computers into their classes. So that ended up being a really interesting market where we were just flooded with orders. We cleared, like for us, at that time, we cleared over $80,000 in 3 months in profits. And our problem was we had to go back to school because we were on a co-op term. So we ended up hiring co-ops to come in and keep our business going while we went back to school. It was a great time, because we had to honor our warranty, right? We were a reputable business.
So this was very much an organic kind of business that you didn't purposely start it.
No, it was just let's see if we want to start our own business. Do we fit? Is it something that we'd like to do? And it was a really good testing ground for us, that's for sure.
Awesome. And then what happened to that business? Did you continue with it, or?
No, actually, so that kind of went on hold, and we kind of said we tried that with something we like, but we didn't at that time feel that it was, we didn't have the big idea, and we also didn't see ourselves as prepared to actually go out and start a business, and so we both, after that I worked at IBM, and that was really cool because I went through their marketing training. I was a systems engineer there, and that really gave me a great perspective of the marketing, the customer service, how to sell, and the processes that a company needs to have. Because I mean, where do you get more red tape at IBM? But where also do you really understand what the customer's right, and you problem solve with a customer-facing approach, right? And so that really gave me some fundamentals that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't had that experience. And then the other thing that I did after that is I worked at Novotel as a product manager, and Novotel was they were you know, at that time we were looking at the Six Sigma level, and it was high-end, high-quality manufacturing. Yeah. And so it was the product testing and really understanding the manufacturing side of it. So now I understand both sides of the business. So then when we had the good idea and it showed up, we said, now I think we could actually take what I know and put it together into a company and make it run, because I started to understand the pieces of the machine to put it all together. And now I guess you probably get that in an entrepreneur class now. I don't know how that works, but yeah, that's how it works.
Or I guess, yeah, I guess entrepreneurship is kind of better learned doing it. Mm-hmm. So after how many years, you know, of kind of working?
Probably, let me see here. Probably about 15 years. Okay. Yeah, it was a while. Yeah, we were in the business for a bit, so we felt comfortable about building teams and working with people and the systems and stuff like that. So I mean, everyone's so young here. I'm thinking that everyone's going at it way ahead of time, which is great. I mean, if you're building the team and you've got the you know, the skills around you, or even the perspective that it's not just about the product. There's a bigger machine to support the product, to promote it, all those other things that you need to know, right?
Yeah, awesome. And so this was the idea for Dynastream, or?
Yes, so then Dynastream happened. My brother-in-law is a professor at the University of Alberta. His wife was a marathon runner, and she used to have days where some days she would she felt like she was running really fast, and she'd come back and find out that her time was really terrible, and other days where she thought she was running terrible and she was running really fast, and you know, even though you're running all the time, you think you've got a good sense of what you're doing. And she said there's got to be, you can put a guy on the moon, you can tell how fast cars and bikes and planes and trains go, but you can't tell how fast a person's moving. And so that's where she said, let's find an answer for that. And Ken, of course, was as a professor, was always looking for projects for his students to build on. So, but he said this is such a good one, he wanted to build it himself. So he came and he had this idea, and he came to us and said, I think I got something cool for a product. And we were kind of still busy and building our lives, and it just wasn't the right time. I said, no, that's great, Ken, go ahead and see what you can do. And so he took about 2 years and tried to develop it and promote it through the university, and still that it never took off. Talked to K2 and a few different, you know, really large companies, and you know, the risk, I think, when you get these good ideas is that the idea is still, I mean, that was something he had submitted for patent, but it's still another $1 million to get that product developed into the market and going. I mean, it's and so those big companies know that even though it's a good idea and it can be developed, there's a lot of risk, and that's just the beginning of the road, right, to actually do the product.
So he had a proof of concept, kind of like it, but
that's part of the story. So yeah, and you know, being someone that we knew, this is the due diligence thing. Really make sure your idea has got great due diligence. You've done your due diligence, that it's real, that it's protected, and that you are investing in something that is real. I mean, this is one of our lessons. Because we know Ken and we trusted him, and he's such an honest guy, and so we probably spent, I mean, for us at that time, we didn't have, I mean, I drove a Volvo car that my brother had, then my sister had, and then I finally got it. My sister was 8 years younger than me. We couldn't rub 2 pennies together. My Volvo had no reverse in it for 7 years. So that's where we were, and we're investing in this company, okay? So we had probably put in about 50 grand into this. I mean, between our friends and stuff like that. This was a lot of money to develop this idea, and then it came to, well, Ken, you know, let's take this out and test it, and because we'd been to some trade shows and had, you know, taken all his data and tried to find customers, and so that's where a lot of our money was going. And we were also starting to build out some prototypes, and we found out that he only had, get this, 7 seconds of data that he had collected on a treadmill in a lab on a big computer like this. And we were like, man, is this thing going to work on pavement? Will it work on grass? Will it work on sand? You know, we had no idea if this was even something that was feasible or possible. And so we were all just, there was just this silence, and we all looked at each other, and no one was going to say it, because we basically felt we'd been sold this bill of goods, right? So of course we have such great engineers. It all worked out, and I mean, we sold it to Nike, and it was everything worked out really well.
And how did this product work exactly? Where do you put it?
That product was a little accelerometer. It was a MEMS device that you put on your foot, and what it does is it samples the path of your foot thousands of times a second. So you're actually recreating your stride as you move. And so because you are actually able, everyone knows what pedometer technology is, and pedometers are, they're like meaningless indicators of performance, because sometimes you're sitting here and you can be running a marathon as you sit here, or you could be, taking long strides and short strides, and so your distance isn't accurate. But with this here, because you recreate every stride very accurately, after you run a 42-kilometer marathon, you're actually at 42 kilometers. Like, I mean, it's exactly 99.9% accurate, because you are measuring every stride. And so there's so much you can do with that. I mean, we developed the first innovation in smart ankles. We were on the front cover of Popular Science with the Proprio Foot by Osser, which was really cool, because now with the people you could actually track their stride, and as they're going down an incline or as they're stepping over a step, you could change the damping, or you could change the angle of their foot. It was just phenomenal.
That was awesome. And this was in the late 90s, or?
That was in the we signed our deal with Nike in 2000.
Yeah.
That's another story.
Yeah.
And then the Osser one we brought out in about 2003.
Okay, yeah. And was that your strategy from the first, is to sell it to a company, or to like Nike, rather than going direct to consumer? Or?
That was probably one of our hardest decisions.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to take our own brand out, and we thought world domination, we got it here, and we are going to make all our money having our own brand, and the margins are so low when you go through a manufacturer and you go through another brand, and it's sobering when you look at what it costs to build something. So if it costs $10, it's going to have to sell for at least 5 to 6 times when it's on the retail shelf. You have to discount on that, and so it was really hard to let go of one of those layers to not really get those profits. And you really have to understand what it takes to get people to part with money out of their pockets to buy your product. Because after-tax dollars are way different than a company buying something for whatever reason. When you have to part with your money to buy that Pebble watch or that pair of running shoes, I mean, that's another decision, and there's a lot of other brands and products that are out there that are competing with you for that. So the Nike decision worked out really well for us, because they already had, I mean, even Nike had a rough time. What we were bringing into the market was something that had never been done before. And there was a lot of doubt that our product could even be that accurate. Yeah. And so, because people still were thinking this was pedometers, and this is before GPS came out for GPS watches and stuff, because the technology wasn't there yet. If you can find a partner who has a community, whether it's, and things have changed now, where we're looking at followers like the Stravas, or the Map My Runs, or people that have already got 16 million eyes looking at their stuff. If you can partner your products up with groups that already have natural communities, even if it's co-branding or something like that, it certainly gets you going faster right away.
Yeah. Okay. So how did you, as a company, you were in Cochrane, right? How did you get Nike? As a small company in Alberta, I presume. How did that happen?
I think you always talk about luck, but you also talk about perseverance. And one of the things they talk about is with successful companies is they often put themselves in places where you network with people who can make things happen. And I think that's something you can't be shy about, is getting yourself out everywhere, because you don't know who you're going to meet where. And so coming out to things like this are phenomenal, because not only are you meeting with the network here in Calgary, but everyone here is networking with someone else somewhere else in the world. And so just by coming here, you're connecting to a bigger world. And for us, at that time, there was no internet, there was no LinkedIn and all that good stuff. So we had actually been down to San Francisco for some patent issues that were coming up, and had run into some folks who knew folks, and said, I know Nike, our product manager, and so we ended up following through with him that way, and that was one of the routes we had in. But another way that we also connected through to a lot of the brands was we used to go to the Super Show, put on by the SGMA, the Sporting Good Manufacturing Association in the States, and they don't have that anymore, at least that's not the Super Show. But going to those events is, especially the first 2 days of those events, is usually when the senior C-level people of those companies will show up. And a lot of them are the product developers or the senior management. And if you're trying to get an interview, that you'll never get in through the front door if you're just phoning or walking off the street. But if you go to those trade shows, often you will be able to get connected to someone who is responsible for the product roadmap, who's doing the market research to find out. They're going there as well to find out what's new and what's going on. So it's a great investment to get in there and introduce yourself to folks. Don't be shy. To bring your idea along and let them know about it.
Go out there. Yeah, I sometimes struggle with that myself. Is how do you balancing your time between networking or going to trade shows versus working on the product and doing more of the direct sales. So I don't know, what's your kind of advice? Should you network as much as possible, or should you just get someone to do that for you? Is there a balance, or what?
I think if it's got to be, it's up to me. That's one of the famous sayings. Everyone knows that. So you gotta own it. If you're gonna, you can't send someone else to do your networking. You gotta do that. Yeah. I think the challenge that we often have is we get so caught up on our own idea and we want to build it that we often forget that we have to have a customer who wants to buy it. Yeah. And so when we first started Dynastream, it was Dynastream Inc. And we were building and developing and engineering like crazy and having so much fun making this great idea, but we didn't have a market and we didn't have anywhere to sell it, and we were dead end because we ran out of money. And so we actually folded the company and then restarted it again and went out with the focus on finding a customer, finding a market. And so you do have to have balance, but I think you really have to know where your product is going before you invest in it, because you don't know if you have got a good idea until you have a paying customer. Yeah,
this is actually a perfect plug for our next program. Which
is it? Okay.
It helps you exactly not finding a customer before you invest too much into it. So,
yes.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like a lot of companies have gone through that, and now there's a whole customer development movement and a lean startup movement to focus exactly on that. Getting outside the building and finding a paying customer before you invest too heavily into your own product. So
absolutely.
That's awesome to see a real-hand example of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got Nike, and then you, I guess, started just to out from there, and
yeah, we actually had a 2 or 3 year exclusivity with Nike, and I heard it here tonight earlier before we talked, and there was this talk of, when you work with these big companies, you're often thinking that they're going to squash you, they're going to take advantage of you, or they're going to steal your idea.
Nike was your only customer.
Yeah, which is really scary, right? Yeah. And Business 101 says never have one customer, never have one supplier, always have backup for all those things, right? But we needed this customer, and the nice thing about, we were talking to Nike, we were talking to Polar, a couple other companies, but they were the incumbents, and the neat thing about it is when we were negotiating with them for this deal, we had strength because we were negotiating with a couple, and so we were comfortable enough that we could walk away from the deal with any one of them, because in fact we walked away from Nike 3 times before we actually signed a contract with them, because we weren't going to sign a contract that wasn't right for the company, that wasn't going to give us a lifeline that we could really be viable with.
Yeah. So how long did it take from the moment you were introduced to Nike to closing the deal?
Probably about a year.
Okay. Yeah.
So having one customer was kind of a weird thing, but once we did land on that customer, we had secured a large enough contract that gave us a runway to get our technology in place and to build what they really wanted and to develop our relationship, so that what we first sold them, we ended up having 5 other projects that were on the go with them, and we kept an NRE stream, and it built a model that we became viable. And then when our exclusivity was up, we had time, we had credibility, and we actually had we had Polar, Garmin, Suunto, Timex, Adidas. All those customers all came on board after that over time. So we had time to build up our market. They proved it for us. And you know, they were the first ones in. And there's the debate about first one in, is it the right place to be or not?
Yeah.
And you know, Nike, I mean, we were in magazines. They, you know, the need for speed they had. We were in all the, you know, at Christmas time they had all these great promotions. But runners thought, I don't need this. I know how fast I go. I know what my route is. I check my time. What are you going to tell me this for? But now, of course, how many tens of millions of footpods are being sold a year, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, people thought they didn't need it. So it was that early adopter curve, and and so they were the first ones in, and they spent a lot of time developing that market. And actually wasn't until the Garmin products came out and that category actually came to be that it actually took off. So having one customer is, I guess, number one, is not a bad thing if you can get a big enough contract that makes it viable, because you probably can't, you're not big enough to manage more than one customer anyhow.
Yeah.
So that was the cool thing about it. But if you say, okay, I'll only work with you, and if you want exclusivity, you make your deal big enough that you can justify exclusivity to tell yourself out of the market for that time, and it gives you time because you just don't have enough bandwidth to carry more.
And you were doing it all from Alberta. Some people, you know, how did you find yourself, you know, building a company in Alberta at that time? Did it help you, hinder you? Did you ever consider moving to maybe Silicon Valley, where there'd be more types of companies like yours?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we actually lived in Cochrane, which is even farther away, right?
Yeah.
I like to believe that being in Cochrane and being in Canada was an advantage for us in many ways. And I know right now we're kind of going through the same thing with our 4Eyes company. Should we go to San Fran? That's where all the networking is and where the groups and the connections are. But our decision to be in Cochrane was it was a personal choice because it was a lifestyle choice. We didn't want to have to commute half an hour, and we had young families, and we didn't. So we wanted that hour, that extra 2. We knew that if we're starting a company, we're going to be putting in long days. We didn't want to be spending our time on the road. We wanted to be spending at our desk or at our home. And so we set up our office 7 minutes away from where we lived, which was, I think, a really good thing for us. And the school was like 2 blocks away, so the kids could come to the school after the day, and we could still. They have lots of horror stories to tell me now about how terrible a life that was. But I used to have this poster on the wall and stuff like that about so they could color when they come in, and I'm not coloring that poster anymore, Mom. But anyhow, that's how it was. But back to the point, being in Cochrane was good because our customers were really paranoid about other competitors finding out their secrets. So Nike, if you go to Beaverton in Portland, they've got this berm all around the Nike campus. So no one can look in and see what they're testing, what they're doing, what they're up to. And so when they would come up to Cochrane, like we made it it was anything to do with any brand, any company, any of our customers. I wouldn't let anyone hang up a Nike poster in the office. They couldn't have any branded stuff on their desk and nothing. They would come into there and they felt that we were just this most vanilla, secure, safe place to be. They'd get off a plane, customs would rouse them like crazy, like, you're going where? Sure, you're going to Cochrane in your Nike talk business, right? It was just ridiculous. And so they felt like they were going out to the sticks. They were in the middle of nowhere, and they felt, it almost was like we were their little development house. And then Polar would get off the plane the next week, and they would come out and they would get the same rigmarole through customs, right? But every time they came out, I really felt that they felt they were in the middle of nowhere and their ideas were safe and secure. So it was, they had a physical sense of security, but we also worked really, really hard in all of our communications or emails to really be sensitive to their sense of confidentiality, and that because we worked with all the industry, we worked with every one of their manufacturers, so they were introducing us to their manufacturers in Asia. They were sharing their product roadmaps with us. And this was like all the major brands in the industry. It was such a weird place to be. And so we really had to recognize that and value it and respect it.
Oh, awesome. And then you sold the company in 2008? Or
6.
Okay. So it was like 6 years. And so how did the sale happen and what?
That's a good question. At the time, GPS had come out, and we had this one of the challenges you have with wearables is that they're wireless, and at the time there was only this EM wireless communication, and so we ended up building a radio that worked in the watches so that this stuff could work together over the distance, because from your foot to your watch was too far. We couldn't use the normal EM pulse. And so we developed a wireless protocol with our first Nike products, and then we evolved it. And there was this problem in the industry where products, if you were to buy a Timex, you had to buy a Timex watch, a Timex footpod, a Timex chest strap. None of it would work together unless you just bought it all from one brand. So we created this Ant Plus wireless protocol. And so now we had interoperable, that we actually created a standard in the industry before Bluetooth Smart came out that was ultra low power. So and the reason it really took off was because power meters, companies didn't want to have to build the rest of the suite of products so that they could, so their power meter could be used on bikes. So they basically created the de facto standard overnight. So then in comes Garmin, and they're our biggest competitor. They're selling GPS watches out at Canadian Tire like crazy, and we're doomed. And ended up growing our market. But then I kept saying, their product line is missing something. When you're in urban tunnel, the GPS isn't really working that well. We can work in the gyms. Our technology can fill a gap or a niche. And of course, everyone in our company was just like, "You're nuts. There's no way our competitor is going to talk to us." And I'd go up and I'd introduce myself to them, and I'd say, I think we should work together. And I remember the product manager there, she just looked at me and she says, "What's the matter with you? Are you crazy?" And so then the next day I'd go and I'd find someone else, and I think we really should work together. I think we've got something that's interesting here. Well, we got an interview. We got a meeting with Min from Garmin. And we were in their office, and of course this product manager was in there, and she's going like, "Okay, hurry up and do your thing, and we'll move along." And we talked about our Ant Plus technology, and we talked about our chest straps and stuff. And when we were done, we thank you very much for your time, and we went through. And then she was like, "Okay, this is the way you've had your time. Goodbye." And Min goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I think we're not done here yet. Do you have time to stay for lunch?" And then go get the senior technology guy in for lunch. And so we ended up having this wonderful lunch, this project that went on, and what ended up happening is we test drove a project together. We probably turned our fastest customized. We did a heart rate strap for them first, and it was we flipped it in 8 months. We had a product from concept to production in 8 months, which was really fast at that time for putting a product through. And our companies aligned really well. The synergies were great, and within a year of that, they put an offer out. And there were actually at that time there were about 6 companies that there must have been something in there, because we were working with Nokia in Finland, and there were about 6 companies that all came to the table at once. And again, it gave us a really good ground to do the negotiation, because if it didn't work with one, we still had one week, and we could almost not feel desperate to make that deal, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. It's very surreal, right? Because these things just don't happen. It's just, you're like, this is going on. How does this?
Yeah, and Dynastream is still in Calgary, or
that was actually the fun thing is before that deal, we had another purchase. Someone had approached us earlier and had wanted to buy us, and we learned so much from that first exercise of them wanting to set out a deal that wasn't good again for us. And we learned there that we weren't going to sell unless we could set the terms that were right for the company. And one of them was treat my customers well, treat my employees well. And I can't remember what the last, I know, not that we wanted to be paid out full. We weren't going to do this, paid on performance over time, because you don't control anything, and they could shut you down, and there goes your performance, right? So we were really glad, because they respected our customers, and they continued to supply to them, and they had full employment. They didn't move people down to the States or relocate our employees. And so today there's still 80 to 100 people in Dynastream and Cochrane. So we are so happy that there's this legacy, and we're becoming a bit of a sports tech
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's like only have a Cochrane. I don't know how much activity there is in Cochrane.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity. Come on out there. It's just like, well, this whole western part of Calgary, right? It's just like this corridor of high tech where we just, CTI is here and you guys are here, and it's just all.
That's amazing. And did you find like did you have the support you need to negotiate with Nike or Garmin here in Alberta? Like, was that, I guess, built into your company, or did you reach out to people outside of your company to kind of advise you? And
we had a really strong board of directors.
Yeah.
So number one, when we first did our Nike deal, I think having been with IBM really gave me a grounding that you need to know when to play at the top level and when to play, at the different levels. And then we brought in Bennett Jones at that time. They great, solid, robust company that I could feel that I could sit at the table and negotiate a deal with them straight out. And that gave us a lot of strength at the table. And then when we did the final deal with Garmin, we probably would have settled for way less, but our board pushed us and encouraged us to really take perspective. And thank goodness for our shareholders that our board really represented them well. So I think our board is probably one of the most important things that we had in our company, because they held us accountable to what our plan was, and they always brought in outside perspectives, and they pushed us. It's not always comfortable, but it's really healthy for a company to have a good, strong board.
Yeah. And how did you put together this board? Were it people you knew, or
people
you developed relationships with?
Well, it's these kind of things, right, where you network with people and you get to and you take a board. I think for everything you always build teams with getting the whole brain around the table, right? Because you know that your strength is different than someone else's, and if you get everybody like you around the table, you're not going to go in the right direction, because it's going to be. So when you get your board, you need to look at making sure you have all the right skills around the table for what your company needs. And so often at the beginning, your board will be skewed more towards having legal and things for getting the company set up, and maybe some in marketing and stuff like that. But eventually, you want to bring people in that can bring the network that you need to develop your company. And we were really fortunate that way, where we had, we had a blend of finance and marketing and just business acumen.
And this was all talent from Alberta?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we had, I could list off names, but important ones. But
I guess Google. Okay, that's awesome. That's great. And you sold Dynastream, and then what did it feel like after you sold Dynastream? And well, I guess, were you still working for Dynastream, or that?
They had a 3-year clause. They wanted us to stay on and help with the progression and that sort of thing. So, so they were really a good company. Now, that was the other thing, is working with. I think I got derailed, but one of these. The thing is, working with these large companies, don't be afraid to work with them, because they are reputable. There's always this thing that you're going to get run over by the bus working with these large companies, but you're not. And I find that the bigger the company, the more astute they are, the more they are credible, because they have reputations that they want to maintain. It's not worth it for them to do a bad deal and take advantage of someone that's going to cause a lot of bad publicity. Their standards are usually really high, and they're very professional. So, if you are looking at taking your idea out and approaching a big company but feeling like you're going to get squashed, I would say that that's probably not the case. That really, if you can find a good win-win for them and for us, it costs them a lot more to take a product out and to market and to establish and develop it than what you really think it does. And so if you really can do that, sometimes it's a good way to go.
Okay, awesome. And then now, tell me more about your second company, or your company you started after. Was there much of a break between the two, or?
2010.
Yeah, so right away.
I did take a little bit of time off in between. I had some family time and stuff, but and I was, it's funny. I was thinking I was going to go this other direction, and then we had a friend of ours who's a triathlete, and he tripped over a curb as he was looking at his watch and said, "There's got to be a better way." And, it's like the eureka, there it goes again. And it's like, so he wanted us to build this Google Glass idea, And we said, again, no, and because he knew we had manufacturing contacts and
Yeah.
knew how to put together some engineers and stuff, I said, can you guys help me build this idea? And we thought it was a pretty cool idea. What it was, and so he wanted us to build Google Glass so you could get, instead of all the information on your watch, that it comes to your eyes.
Yeah.
And we said, well, look at Google Glass is doing it. It's costing how much money to develop that concept and projected display, and we don't have the money to develop that. And besides, I don't think it's the right kind of information for an athlete. So when you're running and you're busting your butt to get up a hill, do you want to look at that and go, heart rate 163, what is that? What was my target? Is that right or wrong? And like, is it good or bad? You don't want to know that. You just want to know green is good, red is too hard, blue, I'm not going to make my personal best, I better step it up. So you just need to know the color, and you need to know, if I want to know what is, you can tap it and it'll tell me what is that number that I'm looking at. So that's what we did. We decided that we wanted a color-based system.
Yeah.
To give immediate feedback, so you can see exactly when you're moving in and out of your zones. And then we did some DSP, so you can get an audio feedback, and then you can double tap and it switches to your different sensors. So we thought we had the cat's meow. This is our next big product.
And you should go visit the website for us. They have a video demo there. It's just amazing technology, and
it's cool. We just now put it with the Climb app. So are any of you guys cyclists? Anyone here cycle? Does anyone use Strava? Have you heard of Strava? So the segments. So the deal is that what Strava does is it's quite a well used cycling app on your phone, and when you go out for the originator of Strava was he was a rower, and when he stopped rowing, he really liked to train with his buddies, and so he was looking for a way to train with his friends, and just developed his Strava app. And so what it is when you go cycling, you can create your own segment, and then your friends can challenge you on that segment, and so you have a king of the mountain competition. But the challenge with Strava is that when you go out on your segments, you don't know when the segment begins and when it ends, and you don't know how you're doing as you're riding through the segment until you get back to your house and you download your workout, and then you can say, oh man, I was 5 seconds short. So what we do now is, with our visual and our audio, we've got an app now that lets you know, you can go on, you can say, I want to ride this segment, and I want to ride against Joe, because he's, I told him at the coffee machine today I'm going to kick his butt, and then so then you go out on your ride, and as you're approaching the segment, it switches from giving you your heart rate and your biometrics, and it says segment approaching, and then as you get closer to the segment begins. And now, instead of seeing your heart rate and all this other stuff on here, you're seeing you and Joe, and you're the blue dot and Joe is the red one, and then as you're riding along, it tells you 5 seconds ahead or 10 seconds behind, and it'll tell you when you're 25, 50, and 75% along the way, so you know how much time you have to catch up and get ahead. So now you can know in real time as you're driving through the segments. It's a lot of fun.
That's like gamification of sports.
That's exactly what is going on.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what's people's response? I mean, this is already in the market, and people are using it. It's
great. We were in the top 10 apps at the Consumer Electronics Show. They had a mobile app competition, and we were in the top 10 for that.
Wow.
And we think we came in second, but they had the audience cheer at the end. But it was really a lot of fun. And UK is a really big market for us. They're picking it up faster than North America.
Yeah. Okay. And this is now, are you selling it direct to consumer, or are you following the partnership route?
Right now we are doing the Nike of the North, but that's not really where we're going to be. For these products, our strategy right now is to carve out the market where we're going to take our brand and where we're going to live, because we don't want to compete directly with our larger, bigger opportunities that have the bigger ecosystems. Mm-hmm. And so while we came out this first time now, we kind of did broke the rule of not having that first customer, that we're going to create our customer and do our own distribution. We still see the OEM as a really big part of our business, and we will still develop that piece of it. And that's where we're taking a lot of our current products now, is through the OEM channel. Yeah. And so we'll just keep, it's kind of fun developing our own brand. We haven't done that before, and doing our own direct marketing. Yeah. And I think that the 4Eyes brand will just continue to be niche, high-end athletes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And so then, I guess going from niche, what do you think of Google Glass, and have you tried it yourself? And
yeah, we've actually been able to try it.
Okay.
You know, it's a really fun idea, and it's so cool to be able to wear one, and you know, everyone likes a cool factor, right? Look what I got.
Yeah.
But most people that I've heard said if I actually use that and I'm doing some sports, I'd probably kill myself because I'd be taking my eye off the road to look at this number. And it's, so I think it's the right tool for the right. It's really it's opened up the world to wearables. Yeah. They're the first guys in. I'm so glad they're doing it because how many millions of dollars are they spending every year to get people used to putting stuff, wearable stuff on them?
Yeah.
I mean, it's perfect for us, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's great. It's about drafting someone else's campaign and tweaking it, because between them and Recon, they're creating this whole eyewear market, and we're coming with something practical that's affordable, and it's really fun to just kind of draft that one through.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so exciting to have a company in Alberta do this. This is not some social network. You guys are doing some really cool hardware.
Yeah, we're kind of the bricks and mortar all the time. It's funny, when we first started in 2000, it was, everything was on the internet, right? If you weren't doing an internet play, you were just, no one would invest in you at all.
Yeah.
And now it's the same thing where you got to be a social media, you got to do an app and stuff like that, but we're still doing the bricks and mortar. So that our products now that we're putting out, the whole platform is all based on, it's all about community again. We're still about, just like we did with the AMP Plus and this protocol sharing. Our products are all open API, so people can take our building blocks and really customize them to whatever application they really want to make happen.
Oh, okay. So I, as a developer, can buy your kit and start developing.
Yeah, we're probably going to be doing Indiegogo coming up in the next little bit here for our apps, for these little buttons that I was showing you.
Yeah.
So the idea is that people we need to recognize. I think one of the other things is recognizing your strengths. Like do your own personal SWOT and figure out if you're a software house, you're a hardware house or not, and then exploit that and let others take you to work with you so that you kind of make each other win. We aren't a software house; we are a hardware group. Yeah. So that's why we open everything up as APIs, because no one has half these modules, these GPS modules that we're making now, or the activity mod. We're doing heartless, our strapless heart rate monitors that with open APIs now. So people have got these little building blocks that you can put into all sorts of applications that we just can't build, right? So that's what everyone else built.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And it's an amazing story. Do you have any advice for founders kind of starting out today if they want to build a hardware company in Alberta?
I think there's one of the quotes that I think they say is Darwin, but it's not. It's some other guy who actually said it. Yeah. And it's talking about it's not the strongest or the smartest that survive. It's those most willing to change and adapt. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're going to do hardware and you've got your idea, I think you really have to look to see where the pull is and be ready to make those changes to fine-tune your idea and your product to be successful.
Okay, great. And this topic always comes up about women in tech or women in engineering. I mean, there's a kind of good mix in the audience, of course, and it's always how can we involve more women in technology. So, did you have any kind of thoughts on that? Or?
Well, it's funny. I saw this question and I just don't get it, because our office, we've got 18 people, and there's 9 women, there's 9 men, and they're equally distributed between the engineers and the admin and everything. Yeah. It's like, I don't even see it as an issue, but if it's there, I'd be interested to hear more about it. But I just go for it. And I think the women that are there are enjoying being there, and I think that the attitude is I don't see being women as a deal anymore in this industry. Unless, maybe am I wrong? They don't have any
Okay, are there certain advantages of?
I guess so. I would say when I think having a woman at the boardroom table when you are talking to a large account, it gets their attention. I think they're not used to women coming in and talking technology, and so I think it is a strength, and I think that women at the table in building the company is, I can talk about bringing the whole brain to the table again. I think having different perspectives makes a better blend, and more, I think the atmosphere at our company is great. We've just got such a can-do group of people. And I think a lot of it's because we're such a blended group of both genders. And you know, I gotta tell you, I gotta brag right now. We've got our Viva heart rate strap. It came out last February, and then we just finished doing another spin on these other boards. And we thought the first time it happened, this is so lucky. It'll never happen again. But the first time they built our Viva board, the board in our chest strap, they ran it through, powered it up, and it worked. Not one fly wire, not one bad trace, not one track. We didn't have to do another run on it. That never ever happens. So we said, okay, this is weird. I don't know what happened, but we ran another 2 boards, and they've come back and they're running again, first time out. So it's like, you know, I think there's something to do with these girls on this team, because they're just really kicking butt, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Victoria. And as far as hiring, if people are interested, or?
We're not yet, but definitely we're always opening. We'll go through the next phase. We'll be doing some more growth.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. All right, let's open it up maybe for questions. Whoever has a question, you can. Okay, someone really wants. I'm not sure. Maybe I changed my mind. No. Maybe just introduce yourself in maybe your name, just in 5 words or less, and then move on to your question.
My name is Zainin. I'm a product manager, and my question is regarding Ant. I'm a firmware engineer by trade. I love Ant. I've used it. Did you realize that you had something huge? Like it's its own product on its own.
It is. It's
brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm really glad to hear that. It's still one of my kids, right? That whole Ant concept. And we could have just built a wireless and just made it available, but we really chose to make it, put a brand on it, make it a platform. And we actually had, it was a bit of a division in the company, because there was, why could we be so proud and presumptuous to believe that we could create a standard? And we actually had people leave the company because they thought it was so presumptuous of us to believe that we could create a standard, and they thought it was irresponsible. So I'm really glad that we believed in it and we forged through, and it actually has taken off the way it has. It's great.
It's de facto.
It is. There's probably, I mean, a few years ago there was 300 million nodes. I think I'm not sure how many. I think it's like tripled that now. And with the with it now being turned on in the phones, like Samsung has turned on the Ant Plus, and Sony's got it on in some of their phones. So it's actually, I think we're in the billions now of nodes that are out there for Ant Plus.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it's so cool.
Yeah. Eddie?
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
That got sold with Garmin, so one of your children was sold off.
Yes, that's true, and I'm so glad to, it's nice to see your kids grow up, right? it's doing well, and it's awesome. I'm really happy to see it.
What is your relationship with the Dynastream Garmin now? Any at all?
No, we don't have it. I mean, we meet them. I mean, all the Dynastream folks. We all eat at the same places, so the lunchroom is all pretty common in Cochrane, right? And we play hockey together at lunchtime, and they're always at the basketball courts and stuff like that. So and I meet up with Catherine. She heads up the marketing over there, so we know each other well, and it's really nice to have. I think have that network even in Cochrane. So it's very cool.
You at the back, gentleman at the back.
My name is Hussein Darcy. My question is that when you're starting up, you have an idea. You talked a little bit about the protection of the idea, right?
Yes.
What are some of the tips you would give to the new entrepreneurs on, like, if you have a great idea, like, what are some of the things they need to consider to protect their idea?
Well, patenting, of course. One of the things that I thought that was kind of fun, that Kip often says, is to first you have to always document it, write it down. But how do you really ensure that you're right? It's first. Sometimes it's first to patent, and sometimes it's first to file, or first to invent versus first to file. And I'm not sure, one is Canada, one of the States. But if you want to be sure that you have first to invent locked in, write your idea out, put it in an envelope, mail it to yourself, and you've got a post stamp on your envelope. Leave it closed, so you always have your idea, that you can always prove that you were first to invent. So that's a really simple, easy way to protect your idea without spending a lot of money on legal. And then, of course, you have to go to patent if it's something that you want to protect it. So you have a choice whether you're going to protect it and spend the tens of thousands of dollars to patent, or if you're just going to go be first to market. And if you're going at your own brand and your own marketing strategy, then you're better just to barrel through it and market. But if you think that what you have, you're going to want to work with another larger company, and you're going to need to have the IP to protect it so that that company will feel comfortable taking on your technology.
Okay, great. Any more? Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Tony. My question is regarding the Ant Plus protocol. Seeing how the BLE is starting to get into the fitness market now, how do you think it will fare against it?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of debate about that. One of the things that Ant Plus does is it has a really nice mesh network capability, and it also has a lot of peer-to-peer functionality right now. So what that means is that if I'm wearing a footpod and I want to talk to my watch, it can also talk to my sport eyes eyewear. Like, it can talk to multiple things. But if I'm only talking Bluetooth Smart, it only has a master slave. So it means you can only just talk to one thing at a time. So if my Bluetooth footpod talks to my watch, then I can't talk to my cell phone. I can only send footpod data to one thing or the other. So that's one of the limitations right now of Bluetooth Smart. But I think over time that's going to get taken care of, and that'll go away. So it's really going to be interesting to see what the industry. I think this is one of those cases where the industry, it's a beta VHS situation, and we'll see where the market goes.
All right, yeah, Tom.
So again on Ant Plus, once you made the decision to turn it into a standard, what steps did you take to turn it into a standard?
We started developing the protocols, the profiles for the different types of devices that were all going to interoperate together. So I guess that was the first thing we did, was communicate. We had a good strong base of customers who were already using that, so we got buy-in with them. We developed a brand. That was, it sounds stupid, right? But finding a product name, we went forever to find Ant. But and developing the logos with it, and even developing, how does Ant fit within the rest of our branding of the company? How do you build confidence that standard is going to be protected? That someone can, when someone adopts your protocol into their product, they're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into that product line, believing that that profile is still going to be available to them tomorrow. And so a lot of it's building up trust and commitment, I think, with your customers and with the market as well. I could go on about it. There's just lots.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions? I guess Fernando. Yeah.
I have one question, and it's because sometimes you think that maybe having the patent and live from the royalties could be like a better business. How do you manage that decision to say, I'm curious about that.
Whether to develop the product or whether to just get royalties, like to sell
Right.
the royalties, or just let the royalties from someone else to
Right,
develop it.
right.
I think that in general there's a really big misunderstanding about how much it really costs to take a product from idea to actually develop it. I think that often, there's one guy who came to me and he had this concept for a shovel, and he wanted to patent it, and he was afraid to go talk to a bigger company about it because he thought he's going to get rich. This is going to be his retirement fund. And I said, well, you really got to think about what it costs even for a shovel to take this thing out and develop it. And I said, and what it's going to cost to market it and to convince how many people they're going to buy this to pay it off. So I think that if you're going to negotiate a royalty, I think you have to be really pragmatic and realistic about, you aren't going to get 10 cents off the dollar of the sell price. You got to realize that that guy who's manufacturing it, if he's building it for $10 and he's selling it for $100, you can't get $10 off of it from him because he won't make any money off it. So you really got to think about, put yourself in their shoes and figure out how much can they really pay you on a royalty back out, because they're not making as much money as you think they are, because there's a whole lot that gets eaten up in the channel. So yeah, you can go that route, but don't be greedy. Yeah.
Very great, awesome advice. So Victoria's available for networking, and if you have more questions. And I'd like to thank you so much. It's amazing to kind of hear the story of this amazing company here in Alberta. And thanks for the audience. And
Well,
thanks.